It is said that Freemasonry is a system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. The symbols are central to the craft, and they have multiple layers of meaning. On the surface, their meaning is either self-evident or given in a simple explanation, while deeper layers may be revealed at progressively more rarefied levels of initiation. The classic Masonic symbol is the square and compass. The two interlocking tools of geometry imply straight lines meeting at a right angle and curved lines joining to form a perfect circle. This signifies a union of opposites, heaven and earth, male and female, light and darkness, positive and negative, etc. And it does so within the context of geometry, and specifically sacred geometry, the working medium of the great architect of the universe, aka God. Appended to the symbol is the capital letter G, and at the simplest level the G represents geometry. However, this is so obvious it would be redundant if it were its only purpose, and clearly there is more to it than that. The second meaning given is God. God stands or sits at the centre. God is a singularity reconciling opposite polarities, or the duality of manifest creation. After this, Masons who progress in the craft and rise beyond the first 3 degrees of the Blue Lodges become exposed to progressively more esoteric teachings. At some point they are told the real hidden meaning of the G is gnosis. It is thereby revealed that Gnosticism is a central concern of the higher degrees. This can imply the Gnosticism of Gnostic Christianity, of Sufi Islam, of Taoism, or the yogic traditions of Hinduism, but it points to the pursuit of inner knowledge, both self-knowledge and the quest for personal experience of the divine. It is sometimes claimed in somewhat hushed tones that a fourth signification of the G is generation, connected to one's genitalia. This implies not just the creation of life, but the raising of consciousness through secret processes of sexual alchemy. So the Masonic G can stand for geometry, or God, or gnosis, orgasm, well, possibly, which is sexual energy transmuted into gold, or and gasm. Generation being the more conventional version of that. There is one other explanation of the G concealed between the square and compass, which is the subject of this video, and the word is Gematria. What is Gematria? Well, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, it is a cabalistic method of interpreting the Hebrew scriptures by interchanging words whose letters have the same numerical value when added. That's a fair description, although it's not entirely accurate, because scholars will point out that its use can be demonstrated by the ancient Greeks, under the name of Isocephia, and the Babylonians, many centuries before the Hebrew alphabet was ever used as a system of counting, and at least a millennium before the first emergence of the Cabala. And set against this, hardcore Kabbalists would assert that the author of the Pentateuch, which was Moses, clearly structured his 5 books by means of Gematria, but that knowledge of this fact was a priestly secret and strictly confined within an oral tradition, which is why scholars can find no record of its practice for those missing 1,000 years. The Cabala or Cabala and cabalistic practices are of fundamental importance to Freemasonry. In William Sterling's classic book The Canon, we find Cabala formed an important part of the Masonic traditions and undoubtedly contains the nearest approach to a direct revelation of the ancient canonical secrets of the old world. And in the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, Albert Mackey provides confirmation when he writes, Cabala is intimately connected with the symbolic science of Freemasonry. He goes on to say, much use of it is made in the advanced degrees, and entire rites have been constructed out of its principles. Hence it demands a place in any general work on Freemasonry. In similar vein, the great American Freemason Albert Pike writes, Masonry is a search after light. That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Cabala. And all the Masonic associations owe to it their secrets and symbols. Therefore, Cabala is not peripheral, but lies at the very heart of Masonic philosophy and symbolism. On the website of the J.J. Crowder Masonic Lodge in North Carolina, there is explicit reference to the cabalistic technique of Gematria. They state there are some Masonic researchers who think that the letter G represents Gematria. Exploring this technique of letter-number symbolism, one looks for words, names, and phrases that add up to like values. These are thought to have meaningful relationships. For example, the Hebrew word for heaven, ha-shamayim, has the same Gematria value as a word for soul, neshama. Neshama, 50 plus 300 plus 40 plus 5 equals 395. Ha-shamayim, 5 plus 300 plus 40 plus 10 plus 40, 395. This same website explains this exegetical technique can be used with both the Hebrew scriptures and the Greek Christian scriptures. There are other texts which have been found to contain hidden Gematria in Latin and Arabic as well. From the practice of Gematria have arisen extremely interesting techniques which reveal a type of spiritual geometry hidden within the scriptures. These comments are important because they imply that there are Gematria codes for Latin and Arabic script languages that are as important as those for Hebrew and Greek. They also hint at the critical role played by geometry in the structuring of Gematria encryption. In a paper delivered to the Allied Masonic Degrees Britannia Lodge in 1996, Thomas Worrell also drew attention to the existence of a Latin Gematria code. He explained that Gematria is a mode of cryptic writing used to preserve and transmit the practical secrets of the Western tradition of ageless wisdom. It is an artificial language combining Hebrew, Greek, and Latin elements. Its outstanding characteristic is that the letters of the three alphabets it employs also serve as numbers. Consequently, every word, phrase, or sentence is also a number, the sum of the values of its letters. The Gematria codes of Hebrew and Greek are well established. But what code is used for Latin, and hence the modern European languages based on Latin script? This is critically important to establish because the teachings, symbols, and rituals of Freemasonry are all put together in English, or those European languages. Fortunately, the brethren have left us a trail of breadcrumbs. Thomas Worrell informs us that some of our rites have obvious cabalistic influences, such as the 28th degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite, which is called Night of the Sun. The significance of this degree is especially highlighted by Albert Pike. In his classic compendium of the Scottish Rite, Morals and Dogma, he devotes no less than 219 pages to Night of the Sun. And this section opens with a 15-page lecture of the Cabalists. And the whole section of the book on Night of the Sun comes under the heading Omnia in numeris sitta sunt. Everything lies veiled in numbers. Further information about Night of the Sun comes from Albert Mackey's History of Freemasonry. Mackey writes that Night of the Sun, in its original ritual, is a mere condensation of Rosicrucian doctrines. He goes on to say, there is not in the wide compass of Masonic degrees one more emphatically Rosicrucian than this. From these statements, we can infer that Rosicrucian philosophy was essentially cabalistic and numerical in nature, and therefore deeply concerned with Gematria. The really big clue comes when Mackey leads us to the source from which this Rosicrucian material derives. He says, Henry Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy may be considered as the textbook of the old Rosicrucian philosophy. We can then delve into Agrippa's 2nd book, which is devoted to numbers and mathematical magic. Here we find the 18th chapter supplies the Gematria code of Greek. The 19th chapter gives the code for Hebrew, and the 20th gives the code of Latin. Of course, this is far more than just Latin. It is the code of all the Roman script languages, not least of which is English. So here is the Gematria code of the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons. Eureka, we have found it. Now, the correctness of this conclusion is confirmed by a rather curious passage in William Sterling's canon. On page 153, he writes, the name Orpheus has the value 1275. In the earliest efforts of Christian art, it is not uncommon to find Christos depicted playing upon a lyre in the fashion of Orpheus. No reason is known for this singular impersonation, but the number 1275, deduced from the name Orpheus, suggests a reason why the two gods had a similar identity. He is saying that no reason suggests the reason, except the number 1275. Something is missing. We can see how the 6 Greek letters of the name Orpheus sum to 1275, but only when Agrippa's Latin script code is used to count the name of Christ can we understand what Sterling was hinting at. The value of the name Jesus Christ is exactly 1275. From this we can tell that Agrippa's code for Latin and hence English was clearly regarded as a great secret in Freemasonry. Although since 2004, when I first published this discovery on my website, it has not been quite as big a secret as it used to be. Now let's see if we can apply the Gematria code to the symbol which signifies it, the square and compass. This is its name in Masonic ritual. The 3 words have a Gematria total of 815. This is interesting because it is also the value of truth and beauty in their original English spellings. The square is true and the circle emblematic of heavenly beauty. By Greek Gematria, 815 is also the value of Zoe, which means life. This seems fitting, especially when considering the Egyptian symbol for life, the Ankh cross. An Ankh has a right-angled cross at its base and a circular loop at the top. Perhaps the square and compass and the Ankh cross are alternative versions of each other. The two components of the symbol without their copulative and sum to 770. By Greek Gematria, this can signify phoenix, the phoenix. The phoenix is also a symbol of life, but this is life that regenerates itself from the ashes of a funeral pyre. It signifies the immortality of the soul, a living entity that survives the death of the body. The letter G has a value of 7. And so when this is added to the symbol, its total becomes 777. 3 sevens. Thus, there are 3 elements, and the central element is a 7. The combination is 777. On its own, 7 has a host of significant properties, not least of which being its signification of completeness in Egyptian, Babylonian and Hebrew teachings. This can be most clearly seen in the 7 days of the first week of creation. And in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, describing the first act of creation, there are 3 critical elements: God, the heaven, and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In Hebrew, these 3 sum to precisely 777. God in the centre, the heavens above like the compass, and the earth beneath as a square. The number 777 also brings to mind the legendary source of Freemasonry. The biblical patriarch Lamech lived to an age of 777 years. And in the Cook manuscript, circa 1450, it is from him that Freemasonry originated, because he is the father of the first mason and geometer, Cabala, and the first metal craftsman, Tubal-Cain. Finally, 777 is the value of the Greek word stauros, meaning a cross, when the first 2 letters are counted as the stau or stigma digraph. So we have now found the Gematria code by which the secrets of the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons are encrypted. The door is opening. Let there be light.